It started with a faint smudge, not a planet, not a star. People looked up, squinting. Amateur astronomers were the first to really see it, picking it out in their telescopes. A small, blurry something moving slowly against the background stars, and then the calls began. Emails to observatories, posts on obscure forums. Did anyone else see that? Is that a new satellite? But it wasn't a satellite. It kept getting bigger, slowly. Week after week, it grew from a fuzzy speck to something unmistakably round. A tiny disk at first, maybe a quarter the size of our own moon, but clearly there. And then the news channels picked it up. Scientists, at first cautious, then amazed, confirmed it. Thinking there was a second moon, it had just appeared, or rather, it had always been out there, lurking in a strange, distant orbit, a long-forgotten companion, or maybe a rogue asteroid captured by Earth's gravity, finally swinging into our visible range. No one knew its full story yet, but it was real, and it was getting closer, or at least its orbit was bringing it into a prominent position. The initial reaction was a mix of awe and terror. Think about it. We've always had one moon. The moon. It's just there. Part of our sky, part of our stories, part of our very existence. And now there was another, smaller, a little craggier looking, not as smooth and pale as our familiar friend, but undeniably a moon. Two of them. And suddenly, the night sky was different. Sometimes, you'd see them both hanging there. Our big, bright, familiar moon, and then a little sibling, a bit dimmer, sometimes a slightly different color, depending on its composition and the light hitting it. Imagine standing outside, looking up, and seeing two distinct circles in the sky. It changed everything instantly. The first big changes, the ones everyone felt, were the tides. Our ocean tides are already driven by the moon's gravity, pulling on the water. Now, with a second gravitational pull, things got complicated. For a while, it was chaos. Tidal charts were useless. Some days, when both moons were pulling from roughly the same direction, the high tides were massive. They surged further inland than anyone had ever seen, swamping coastal towns, closing ports. Little islands disappeared completely at peak high tide. Then, when the moons were pulling from opposite sides, the low tides were extreme, exposing vast stretches of seabed that had been underwater for centuries. Shipping lanes became treacherous. Harbors needed constant dredging, or ships couldn't dock. Fishing boats had to completely relearn their trade, navigating new currents and unpredictable water levels. The coastal communities were hit hard, houses were flooded, infrastructure crumbled. Seawalls that had stood for generations buckled under the new pressures. People who lived by the ocean, their lives tied to its rhythms, had to reconsider everything. Some moved inland. Others adapted, building homes on stilts, developing new flood defenses. Insurance companies went bankrupt trying to cover the damage. It was a massive, ongoing natural disaster, but it happened slowly, subtly, over months and years, as the new moon settled into its long-term orbit. And it wasn't just the tides. Gravity itself, on a smaller, more subtle scale, felt different. Or rather, people thought it did. Scientists explained that the change in overall gravity was tiny, negligible for most things. But the psychological impact of a new massive object hanging overhead made people feel it. Head itches, dizziness, a general sense of unease. It was probably psychosomatic for many, but the feeling was real. Buildings were fine, the ground didn't open up, but the world just felt. Not heavier or lighter, depending on who you asked. It felt different. Then there was the light. Nights were brighter. Not all the time, of course. Our first moon still went through its phases. But when both moons were full, or even half full, and high in the sky, it was like a perpetual twilight. You could read outside, you could walk through forests without a flashlight. Cities, already bright, felt almost harsh under the double moonlight. This had ripple effects. Nocturnal animals, those creatures that rely on true darkness, were thrown into disarray. Their hunting patterns changed, their breeding cycles were disrupted, birds that navigate by moonlight had new, confusing signals. Sleep patterns for humans changed too. More people reported insomnia, vivid dreams. The deep, refreshing dark that helps us rest was often gone. People started buying thicker curtains, blackout blinds. The world, even in its quiet hours, felt more awake, more exposed. The weather patterns also shifted. The new moon's gravity, though not as strong as the sun's, added another influence to Earth's atmosphere. Atmospheric tides, the subtle bulges in the air, became more pronounced. This meant slightly stronger winds in some areas, more unpredictable pressure systems. It wasn't a dramatic, immediate change, like a constant hurricane, but over time, meteorologists noticed pattern shifting. Storms seemed to gather more energy in certain regions, rainfall became less predictable. Farmers, already struggling with changing climates, had yet another variable to contend with. The the delicate balance of our planet's systems, so finely tuned over billions of years, was now nudged, pushed, pulled by a new celestial neighbor. But the new moon was more than just a physical presence, it was a psychological one. A profound shift in how we saw ourselves and our place in the universe. For millennia, humanity had looked up at that moon. It was a symbol. For lovers, for poets, for mystics, it represented constancy, change, mystery. Now, there were two. It split the ancient symbols, diluted them, new myths began to form, new ways of seeing the night. Artists were perhaps the first to truly embrace it. Painters depicted dual moons in countless canvases, reflecting new hues, new shadows. Musicians wrote melodies inspired by the double glow, haunting and beautiful. Poets struggled to find words for this unprecedented sight. Literature, of course, soon followed. Science fiction suddenly had a new tangible reality to play with, moving beyond pure speculation into stories of how humanity would adapt to this new world. But even everyday stories, everyday conversations revolved around it. "Did you see the two moons last night?" became a common greeting. People began to identify with which moon was more visible or which moon's phase they liked better. It created a subtle division, a new way to categorize the sky. Religions had a harder time. Many ancient faiths tied their practices and cosmologies to the single moon. Calendars, festivals, deities were all linked to its cycles. Now, what did this new moon mean? Was it a sign? A blessing? A curse? Some saw it as an omen of the end times, a disruption of the divine order. Others interpreted it as a new revelation, a sign of expansion, a broadening of spiritual understanding. New cults formed, worshipping the second moon, seeing it as a fresh start, a new deity. Old religions grappled with how to incorporate it, how to explain it within their existing frameworks. It forced a theological reckoning, a deep questioning of what was truly sacred, truly constant. Science, of course, went into overdrive. The new moon was a gift, or a puzzle, or both. Astronomers, planetary scientists, geologists, physicists, everyone had a new object to study. Telescopes around the world were pointed at it, scanning its surface, analyzing its composition, charting its precise orbit. Space agencies scrambled to develop new missions. Suddenly, there were two lunar bodies to explore, two close targets for probes and potential human missions. This wasn't just another asteroid, this was a moon. It opened up new avenues of research into planetary formation, gravitational mechanics, and even the origins of life if it turned out to have water or unique minerals. Funding for space exploration skyrocketed. Countries competed, then collaborated to be the first to truly understand this new neighbor. It was a scientific gold rush, a chance to rewrite textbooks and redefine our understanding of the solar system. But it was also a practical nightmare for some. Navigation, for example. Ancient mariners relied on the stars and the moon. Now, with two gravitational bodies influencing currents and tides and two sources of light, traditional navigation methods needed serious recalculation. GPS and other satellite systems remained reliable, but the underlying physical environment had changed. The calibrations for everything from long-range artillery to satellite trajectories needed adjustment. Even the seemingly simple act of setting a clock or defining a month was now subtly altered. The length of the day might have changed by a tiny fraction due to the new moon's pull on Earth's rotation. Calendars designed for millennia around one moon had to be reconsidered. Some societies tried to integrate both cycles, leading to more complex calendars. Others simply stuck with solar calendars, letting the moons do their thing. The economy felt the ripples. And beyond the immediate chaos in coastal regions, new industries emerged. Tidal energy, for example, suddenly had a massive boost. With stronger, more predictable, once-charted tides, building massive tidal power plants became incredibly efficient. Coastal protection became a multi-billion-dollar industry focused on designing and building new seawalls, barriers, and even floating cities. Space tourism and resource extraction from the new moon, while still distant, became more tangible goals. The very idea of the new moon itself became a commodity. Companies patented names, images, even sounds associated with it. Two moons became a brand, a motif, a cultural touchstone. But then there was the underlying fear. Was it stable? Was this new moon going to stay, or was it just passing through, destined to crash into Earth or our original moon? Scientists worked tirelessly to model its trajectory, to predict its future. For months, years even, there was an undercurrent of anxiety. Every wobble, every slight deviation in its orbit was reported, debated, analyzed. The fear of a cataclysmic impact, a celestial collision, never fully went away for many people. It lingered like a shadow, even when the data suggested a stable orbit. It reminded us how small we are, how vulnerable our planet is to the forces of the cosmos. And what if it wasn't just an ordinary rock? What if it harbored life, or evidence of ancient civilizations? The first probes sent to the new moon were not just looking for geological data. They were looking for anything. The possibility, however remote, sparked a new wave of fascination and speculation. The discovery of even microbial life on a second moon so close to home would reshape biology, theology, philosophy, everything. It would mean life was not as rare as we thought, perhaps not even unique to Earth. The political landscape also shifted. The new moon was global property. Or was it? Who owned it? Who had the right to exploit its resources? The existing outer space treaties were suddenly inadequate. International committees formed, tasked with governing access, sharing data, and preventing conflict. There were arguments, diplomatic clashes, and sometimes quiet agreements made in the name of common scientific understanding. The threat of a celestial arms race, countries trying to militarize the new moon, was a constant, unspoken worry. But for the most part, the shared wonder and the shared threat pushed humanity towards a fragile cooperation. It became a symbol of global unity, a shared experience that transcended national borders. Everyone on Earth could see it. Everyone on Earth was affected by it. Psychologically, it forced a reevaluation of humanity's place. We weren't alone with our one steady companion anymore. We were part of a larger, more complex celestial dance. It made the Earth feel less isolated, more connected to the vastness of space. For some, it brought a profound sense of awe, a feeling of wonder that transcended everyday worries. For others, it brought existential dread, a feeling of insignificance. Mental health services saw a rise in lunar anxiety cases, people overwhelmed by the enormity of the change. But it also inspired many to look up, to think bigger, to dream of space in a more immediate, tangible way. After a few decades, the new moon, let's call it Luna Minor or Sister Moon, as people often did in casual conversation, became part of the furniture of the sky. The initial shock wore off. Tides became predictable again, though higher and lower than before. Coastal cities were rebuilt with new defenses, sleep cycles adjusted, the brighter nights were just. For them, two moons were just how it was. They would draw pictures with two circles in the sky. Their lullabies might mention the two lights watching over them. The changes became integrated into daily life. As farmers adapted their planting schedules to the new weather patterns, fishermen learned the new currents. Navigators mastered the new celestial mechanics. The double moon became a tourist attraction, a reason to travel to clear sky locations. Observatories became popular destinations. Moon gazing became a pastime, people with specialized binoculars or small telescopes just watching the two dance. Over time, we learned its secrets. We sent probes, then possibly human missions. We found out what it was made of. If it had valuable minerals, new industries would sprout up to mine them. If it had water, it could be a refueling station for deeper space travel. It would become another step, another launch pad for humanity's expansion into the cosmos. The sky, that vast, unchanging backdrop to human history, had changed. And in changing, it changed us. We became a people of two moons. Our perspective broadened. Our understanding deepened. The familiar world was both disrupted and enriched. It was a constant reminder of the universe's power, its endless capacity for surprise. And it was a testament to human adaptability, our ability to not just survive, but to thrive in the face of the truly extraordinary. We looked up, and instead of just one constant companion, we saw two. And the sight still, after all that time, filled us with a quiet, enduring wonder.